All right, we're good. All right, we're back in after some technical difficulties, so there may be an awkward little skip in there. My Wi-Fi went out, and it took me about 30 minutes to get back on. Thought it was because my payment for the Wi-Fi didn't go through. I knew it did go through, but for some reason I was like, shit, did the payment not go through? Nope, I just need to reset the router. So we're good. Having talked about Michigan, I guess there's one more big upset from that weekend, and it was Southern Methodist. This was one I honestly didn't necessarily see coming. I mean, SMU is another one of those teams where I don't know how to feel about them this year because they started off the year and Aiden and I were like, why did we add them?
Mhm.
Why? Dear God, why? And then they've looked good. I mean, I don't know your thoughts on the game. I know their quarterback, Jennings, has kind of been their entire offense. He threw for like 200 yards, rushed for around 115. Definitely an upgrade from Preston Stone. Not saying Preston Stone was doing a bad job, but following his injury last year at the end of the season, I feel like he just hasn't been the same player. And I feel like that's a theme we've seen with a lot of quarterbacks over the last couple of years. They've gone through a horrific injury and then they just aren't the same player. I don't know. What do you think about it? Just the win in general, how Jennings is running the offense compared to Stone. Just up to you.
Uh, I'm I'm pretty I'm starting to get pretty high on SMU right now after this game. I'm not so sure about Louisville. I mean, they just had two tough losses, but just looking back, their only loss is to BYU. They when we had like holdups about them, it was mainly at the beginning of the season when they were playing Nevada and they were not doing so well against them. But they've strung together some pretty solid wins. They TCU, FSU, and now Louisville. And looking ahead, I think like their schedule, like they definitely are primed for a very good bowl. Stanford, I think, can be a manageable win. I think they can pull away against Duke. Pitt's going to be a little bit hard. Boston College, Virginia, and Cal to end it out. I see SMU after this game. I see SMU being in strong contention for maybe a shot at the ACC title game, but it's all up in the air, really. I'm pretty satisfied with SMU right now. I think they've been slowly on the up, and their offensive production this game was very solid. Strung together a couple like an explosive first half, scoring 24 points. It's a very good first half showing for them, and I'm high on SMU right now.
I definitely would say I am high on them too. They've taken the SEC like I would have hoped. Um, I wish they would have come in with a little more momentum, but they're new to a conference. Everyone's gonna have a slow game at some point. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else college wise from last week that I want to talk about?
We must talk about UNC and State.
Oh yeah, UNC and
We're
State.
contractually obligated to talk about UNC and State.
State game. I have a lot of thoughts. A lot of things went wrong. A lot of things went well, and then a lot of things went wrong. Um, I think Grayson McCall's done. Um, you can't have a brain bleed last year and then get two concussions in quick succession. I feel like, bro, I think you need to just like focus on the rest of life. No hate. You were playing well in the game up until that point. It was just like that was unlucky what happened. And I'm not gonna sit here and say you were a bad quarterback or like you weren't a great athlete. It's just, man, concussions are brutal and like it's a part of the sport, but at some point I think you need to start looking out for your own safety. I mean, I know concussion safety and sports has come a long way, and like you hate to see a career end like this. And this has nothing to do with CJ Bailey and the offense looking better with him. No, this is like I'm this as a person, like I am genuinely concerned for his safety. I don't know if he like how bad it was at one point on TV and what Twitter was saying. It appeared like they started CPR on the field, and that's what Twitter was saying. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but It's scary when your starting quarterback is on the turf not moving and they're rushing out with it. Not the stretcher, but they reach for the AED first instead of the concussion stuff. That's like scary number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I have actually a different take than this on some people on whether or not that hit was targeting or not. The hit that everyone thinks is targeting, I actually disagree with. The first hit does not count as targeting because he lowered his head. In a gray area, do I think the first hit was targeting? Possibly, because the defender did lead with his head, but McCall did lean into that hit. My issue with the no targeting call comes on the second and third hit when his helmet's already off. And the defender, how they've called it in the past is, head to head they're going to call. But if it's like if the quarterback's head suddenly jerks because of a previous hit or he lowers it, you usually negate the targeting call because it's like they didn't have time to react. That's unfair. But in this case, he's already been hit and is on the way down. The two defenders had time to react to the hit and move their head to the side, but they did not. And they hit him, not helmet to helmet, but helmet to bare fucking head. Like, how is he alive? I don't blame the referees for not calling it targeting on the field because it was a bang bang play. It happened so fast. Like, I blinked and McCall was on the turf. Like, I didn't see the hit the first time, but if you watch the hit in real time, you can't really tell it's targeting. It just looks like he runs into like a pile of dudes. But like, it's not even the fact that it was still a no call. It's the fact that they didn't even review it. You'd think when someone's helmet pops off like that, even if it's not targeting, just look at it for safety's sake. Like, review it for safety's sake. But because that was a 14-point swing right there. But, that's all I'll say about the targeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Prayers out to the McCall family. Like, that's definitely a tough situation to be in right now.
Especially seeing your son on the field, like them starting CPR on him, knowing he's had a brain bleed. Like, if you can go back and watch, you can see his dad leap from the stands. And from personal experience, that is a long way down. I've jumped that before. That is a long, like, he was scared enough where he jumped probably 15 feet down, didn't brace for a landing, and took out onto the field and beat the trainers out there. The play was still going on. And Grayson McCall's dad was out on the field. That's how bad it looked. I don't know. But any initial thoughts on the Carolina game? I have some more on the State game, but it's more of a different category than the concussion and the hit.
For UNC, it just keeps on sliding. Pitt's definitely a tough team, and UNC was able to keep it close throughout 3 quarters, but Pitt just ran away with it at the end. They had the more explosive plays. UNC just unable to convert on 4th down on the crucial plays, and UNC just continues to slide once again. I'm still very pessimistic about the future for UNC this season. I definitely think Mac Brown's out. Like, he's done after this season. Like, for all intents and purposes, he's just the Joe Biden of UNC right now. Like, he's not want to be there right now. He's just doing it till the end of this term, and then he's on his way out. We got to be looking at for new coaches right now because the whole morale behind the team's dead. Everything's just dead in the water right now, and I can't report on much if there's just no life behind the team right now. But I will say this, I am very happy with the rushing attack behind Hampton. He's proven to be a very reliable workhorse, able to get a touchdown and rush for over 100 yards. Yeah, it's just not a good position to be in. The defense unable to stop Pitt at critical times, and UNC is just unable to make the plays that need to be made.
I feel like that's kind of the story of State's game against Wake. We went down 10. They stormed back. We looked like we had all the momentum. And I'm not going to turn this into a Doran rant because I have that video ready. I'm going to post it regardless of whether we win or lose this weekend. But if you're up 10 on your rival, you don't start running out the clock with like a quarter and a half to go. That's like the math doesn't math there. The math, like Doran really hardcore started trying to run out the clock with 15 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. They don't even do that in the NFL where the clock doesn't stop for anybody.
Yeah.
In college, the clock stops for out of bounds, and then it goes back to old clock rules after the 2-minute warning. Sorry, 2-minute timeout. We can't call it that. But it goes back to normal old college football clock rules where clock stops on first downs, clock stops on out of bounds, regardless of positive or negative plays. Clock stops for pretty much everything after 2 minutes. You don't start trying to run out the clock with 13 minutes to go. And then I see a lot of state media personnel blaming the defense for that game. You know, when the defense is out there the entire first half, basically, and then did we control possession? Did Doran? One thing I will say, I will give to him in that third quarter, he recognized that the defense was out there the entire first half, and then tried to control the clock, but in a progressive way, in a way that did things for us, in a way that scored points, not in a way with, hey, the last run went for half a yard. Let's do the exact same thing, but wait to snap it till the play clock runs out so we can chew clock. No. The deep ball was there. Wake on our deep shots was bailing. So and for once, Robert and I did something fucking good. He realized that the Wake corners were bailing. So when we ran verticals, he had them snap it off for comebacks. And it was just easy completions for CJ Bailey on the outside. But we stopped calling those and they were still open, or they were like the DBs were still bailing and we weren't taking advantage of that with play call. So if we don't get rid of Dave Doran this season, we at least need to get rid of Robert and I. Like I've mentioned on here before, he's been carried by previous talent. And I'm not saying that like disregards anything he did. Like that 2013 BYU offense is like, if I'm just ever perusing YouTube and don't know what to do, I will go watch highlights from that 2013 BYU team. It was fucking entertaining to watch. And it made him look like an absolute genius. Like, I will willingly turn that on. But the team just kind of, for how good of a run game former Robert and I offenses have, and how like creative they were, I've seen the creativity of the Star Wars coloring books from when we were little, where it gives you a picture of a stormtrooper and it's like, color this. Well, it's like, well, they're white. How am I supposed to color it? Or they give you like a Darth Vader and you're like, well, it's black and red. I get to use 2 crayons. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like, and now it feels like you're forcing the fans to watch someone do that. Like, the run game does work, but certain backs on our team aren't able to hit the fucking hole. Like Jordan Waters, he was the marquee running back for Duke last year, who him and Riley Leonard torched the ACC. Jordan Waters this season couldn't find a crease if you asked him to. He could. I'm not going to make that joke because I don't want to get canceled, but I think you know where I was going with that. But let's just say, dude couldn't find a crease if he was looking at a used book with all the pages all here. Dude couldn't find a crease. I was going to go somewhere a lot darker, but we're not going to go there. Aiden,
Keep it PG.
The podcast is already cut off when Aiden and I started getting out of hand.
Yeah.
But he couldn't find a crease. Now, not Jordan Waters. Kendrick Rayfield. Dude, he finds creases easier than anyone else. But, he's only getting like 30% of the snaps. What gives? Like, yes, dude's got to rest. I do recognize that. You can't run a running back every single play. But, like, still, if he's the back that's hot, use him. Now, for once, the passing game is not something I have to complain about. I mean, the passing game play call, sure. But, like, when they're getting the good plays in, they're working. But
Absolutely. One game I did want to mention, just it was a game we highlighted before last podcast, and with the results, shout out to Syracuse for taking down number 25 UNLV in overtime on Friday night. Syracuse was able to come away with the overtime win, 44-41. McCord had a one hell of a game, throwing for 355 yards, three touchdowns. I think in this game just solidified that Syracuse does have like some of the best offensive capabilities in the ACC if they have the play calling to do so. And UNLV just showing their weakness, showing that they have one of the most proficient offenses, but are just unable to stop offenses, the opposing team's offense when it's needed. Um, just there was not a quarter where Syracuse did not score. Uh, just absolute offensive showcase. Very little defense whatsoever. But shout out to Syracuse for coming away with the win and kind of upset. It was kind of an upset for an upset game.
Yeah, that was one game that really impressed me. One thing that Syracuse when one thing that Syracuse does struggle with is turning the ball over. When they don't turn the ball over, they look like the most prolific offense in the country. Like they look like they wouldn't beat like say an Alabama or a Texas, but like if you take offense out of the game, it looks like their offense, or if you take defense out of the game, their offense would keep pace. But the issue is that's not what would happen.
Yeah.
But the key to stopping Syracuse is just force turnovers, play good defense. But hats off. I mean, I kind of felt this game was going to be a shootout with how their offense is played. And honestly, I think it came down to this. Like UNLV's offense was out there the entire second half. So they just looked gassed, and Syracuse just kind of did what they wanted, especially in overtime where it looked like they had Syracuse on that game-winning touchdown. It looked like they had Syracuse stopped dead to rights. But hats off to their wide receiver. Dude just kept pushing, kept those feet turning, kept moving, and was able to essentially carry himself and the linebacker who was about to bring him to the ground into the end zone. Like he was 2 yards short of the end zone, and brother carried him, drug him 2 yards into that end zone. And I thought he was stopped. Like, holy cow. But, it was a hard fought game. No shade to UNLV. I still do think they're a great team. They're still my pick, not to win the Mountain West, but I think the Mountain West championship will be between UNLV and Boise State. That's possibly a playoff implication game there. I feel like the Mountain West is really the only group of 5 conference where they take maybe an 11-1 team. Possibly. Or I don't know. You think there'd be another group of 5 conference where they take an 11-1 team? Outside of Army and Navy. We've talked about Army and Navy. Outside of Army and Navy.
Outside of Army and Navy, I don't really see it being possible just because there's so many. Actually, Boise State. I think Boise State might be a sleeper pick, but just with how strong a bunch of group of 5 teams are and such limited spots, I think the playoff committee is going to be very selective with who they pick. But honestly, in like my opinion, right now, I don't see any team at all, like in the entirety of college football, that it's like guaranteed for them to go undefeated. Like even like Texas's schedule is going to ramp up in the next couple of weeks. I don't see them going undefeated. I don't see Penn State going undefeated. I don't see Oregon, Ohio State. There's a lot of teams that like I don't think there's going to be an undefeated group of 5 teams. So it's just going to be a matter of well, actually, Liberty could be the only undefeated group of 5 team, but I'd say even if they do go undefeated, I would take a one loss in any other one loss group of 5 team over Liberty right now, just because it's not confirmed if they're going to play App State. They would only have 11 games, and They just have probably one of the easiest schedules in all of college football, so I'm not high on them, and I would much rather the playoff committee take a one-loss, strong Group of Five school over an undefeated Liberty.
I would agree. Do I think that's what they do? Probably not. My thinking is I don't think they would. I think they would take the undefeated team, but as we saw with the playoff last year in Florida State, anything can happen. Even in a year where you feel like their rankings have been really, really good, they will still find a way to, like, you know, break their own logic that they've set.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in terms of like possible playoff contenders for Group of Five, we have a lot. We have a lot of teams that are 5-0 and 4-1. Liberty, obviously, 5-0, right? They're 5-0. 5-0. Army, 5-0. Navy, 5-0. Toledo, 4-1. Eastern Michigan, 4-1. Usually you don't hear MAC teams and Group of Five playoff contender in the same sentence, but who knows?
Playoff implication action. You love to see it.
UNLV, obviously. San Jose State, 4-1. General Booty, or now the bench General Booty, and 4-1 UL Monroe, 4-1 Washington State, 4-1 North Texas, 4-1 Louisiana Lafayette, and then obviously Boise State, and then JMU, who just absolutely fucking worked Coastal Carolina. That was ugly. But no, there's one thing you and I want to touch on in terms of playoff implications. That was not only the possibility of an Army-Navy game with playoff implications, but possibly getting 2 Army-Navy games this year.
Oh yeah. Well, this has been something that's been talked around like Twitter, TikTok, everywhere. Everyone's talking about the possibility of 2 Army-Navy games. And the way it would work, conference championships happen at the end of the season, but the Army-Navy game is an exception, and they have the official Army-Navy game held at a neutral site every year. That is held 1 week after conference championships. If Army and Navy win out in the American Conference, which I think is very possible for them to do, they're only really tough. Both of them play Notre Dame, and I think those could, like, Notre Dame could be both of their losses. But them playing Notre Dame does not affect their American Conference standings. So if they go undefeated in the American Conference, they would both likely play each other in the American Championship. That would happen during conference championships, and then after conference championships, the playoff committee makes their selection. What I think might happen if this is the case, the Army-Navy game is going to have major implications after the conference championship, because we don't know if a team that wins in the American championship would also win in the Army-Navy game. And that could very well impact the seedings. It may even impact when the playoff committee decides when they want to release the final playoff bracket. So this is a very interesting scenario that would cause more chaos in the college football landscape. And I'm interested to see what happens. And I'm hoping for both teams to win out just so I can see more chaos.
I agree. And this kind of segues into another thing. I know Liberty was very vocal about not getting to play App State. But as we've seen some people mention on TikTok, we've even talked about it on here, the possibility of the playoff committee waiting to see the results of the Army-Navy game. To be like, whoa, we need to see this. Now that does raise a question about fairness and stuff like that. Like, other teams don't play after their conference championship games. So, like, I do feel like it'd be a little unfair to, like, take that into consideration. But at the same time, I think logically you do have to. Like, they've only played, if you don't count the conference championship game, 11 regular season games, and the minimum is 12. Now, where this gets interesting is if the committee waits for that game, which could be a real possibility, does App State and Liberty play that weekend? Because I don't know if I'm for that, but with how vocal these Liberty fans have been about a fucking hurricane, yet not very Christian of you assholes.
Indeed.
How about next time the hurricane hits you and App State fucking badgers you to play the entire time? You want to play? They would be howling about how awful that is. They would be howling. Liberty Twitter was saying stuff like, Western
Liberty
North
has
Carolina.
Twitter?
Yeah, there are Liberty Twitter accounts talking about
Wow.
how soft Western North Carolina is. Fucker, people died. There are over 3,000 people still missing. There are thousands of children walking the streets of Western North Carolina crying for their parents who they haven't seen in 2 weeks. Yes, that's still going on. There are groups of children wandering, looking for their parents, and you're like, "What? Our 12th game? How are we gonna make the playoffs?" Bitch, you almost just lost to fucking FIU. Shut the fuck up about playoffs. You ain't gonna make it if you go 12-0. You suck your ass. You lose to the worst ACC team right now. Shut the fuck up. Hell, you'd lose to, dare I say, in my opinion, Kent State after what I just witnessed in that game. You would lose to fucking Kent State. 0-5 Kent State. I don't want to hear a damn thing about Liberty in the playoffs ever again. Like, please, with how you treated Western North Carolina, and we're like, but, why can't they play at this stadium? If you do not recall, there are other teams in North Carolina who use those stadiums, Liberty. But what about Bank of America Stadium? We have a team that's currently 1-4 who needs a place to play still. So, I'm not ready to give up Bank of America yet. While that punishment is on my bingo card and then forcing them to play at Mecklenburg County High School, that is one of my solutions. But I'm not ready to go there yet. But Liberty just needs to shut the fuck up right now. Like, if App State wants to play that week and wants to get the game, sure, let them play. But you don't need to fucking strong arm them into playing that game because, but the playoffs. Okay? If, like Aiden said, I agree. If Army or Navy are any number of magnitude near 11-1 or 12-0, you're not getting that spot, buddy. I'm sorry. Army and Navy would put you in a fucking blender. Hell, I'd pay double normal ticket prices to watch them fucking ram your ass on national television. I'd pay a pay-per-view for that shit. I mean, with that, you got any more to add to the playoff talk, or?
Nothing after that rant. But with that, I think we can move ahead and just point out some games in Week 7 that we might think are interesting. I know NC State is playing Syracuse, and UNC has been sent to the CW zone, noon kickoff against Georgia Tech. I'm going to keep this prediction short and sweet. I don't like UNC's chances against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is 4-2, but right now I just don't think UNC has any momentum going for it right now. King from Georgia Tech has been been pretty proficient in passing, throwing 8 touchdowns so far. Over 1,000 yards of passing production. I just think Georgia Tech's going to win this game, and I don't see any turnaround for UNC right now.
I still think you guys can win the game, but I will say Hangs King's kind of a fun, feel-good story. He was the number 1 overall recruit. Kind of came to Texas A&M when they were in kind of the depths of like that little struggle period. He kind of got blamed for a lot of stuff. He got ran out of town, not by the team, but like, fans were turning on him. He transfers to Georgia Tech, and everyone's like, "Oh, you bum. You're going to a really bad team." Turns their season around last year and has them 4-2. That's kind of a feel-good story in my opinion,
Yeah.
Everyone hates you. You're the villain. You're the villain in College Station. You're not playing well. You're not living up to the expectations. You come to the ACC, you find a team that works, and that's a feel-good story.
Yeah.
For NC State's game, do I think we're going to beat Syracuse? No, but similar to my other games, I do think there are keys and like certain things we need to hit. Syracuse is kryptonite from what I've seen this season in the Stanford game. And Stanford, they're better than we give them credit for, but they're not good. Turnovers. We have forced the 5th most turnovers since 2019. We lead the country in interceptions forced since 2019. Force Kyle McCord into fucking mistakes. He's a great quarterback, but he's prone, especially in that Stanford game, to some bonehead fucking reads. Force those. Keep the game in check. Manage the clock. And I mean not chew up the clock. Manage it. Timeouts. Use them. Go fast if we need to. Go slow if we need to. Keep Syracuse's offense in check. I think if NC State's going to win, we need to keep Syracuse under 20 points. 21 points or under. And we need to force at least 2 turnovers, whether it be interceptions or fumbles. Were 2 turnovers enough in the Wake Forest game? No, but we need to force at least 2 turnovers in order to win that game. Do we have some momentum going towards us? Yeah, I mean, the Wake game looked great until the last 10 minutes. Okay, let me clarify before I can. So that's excluding the Grayson McCall hit. We've already touched on that, but that's excluding the Grayson McCall hit. Outside of the first 3 minutes of the game and the last 8 minutes of the fourth quarter, that we looked great. Passing game, well-oiled machine. We looked good. We scored 30 unanswered points for – if you take out the last 10 minutes, we scored 30 unanswered points. Like, we looked great, and then win came out of the sails. If we can forget that last 10 minutes and just push forward here, I think we've got a good shot, but I don't know if we can do it.
I think one thing I do want to say about UNC is I don't think it's all lost. I think the key to success for UNC is just going to be finish the game. The fourth quarter has been the death sentence for UNC these past couple of games, and then during this, these mainly I would say over these past 2 games against Duke and now against Pitt. Duke and Pitt are some very strong teams, and they played the games that they should have played the first 3 quarters. But at the fourth quarter, it's almost always utter collapse. In the fourth quarter against Duke, they allowed 21 points. In the fourth quarter against Pitt, they allowed 10 points. But that 10 points was the main deciding factor, considering the point that UNC and Pitt were neck and neck for the first 3 quarters of the game. If UNC wants to win against Pitt, UNC is going to have to finish in the fourth quarter. They're going to have to take Georgia Tech through through all 4 quarters, not just play the first 3. They're going to have to finish the game.
I agree, and that was one thing I honestly thought you guys had Duke dead to rights. I'm like, something snapped in these guys after my thoughts midway through that UNC game was something fucking snapped in them during this JMU game. During the JMU game, something fucking snapped. Yes. They're about to go on a tear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, holy shit, they're about to fuck some people up. And like you said, I think NC State's similar this season. The past couple games, we've started well. We've just fallen apart once. We've either fallen apart or we haven't adjusted.
Yes.
Things are going well, and then we don't adjust. And, okay, cool. That initial game plan was perfect. It looked great, but, they've stopped doing the thing that they were doing that was making them bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all I'll say for NC State. I just think Doran's also analysis of the games hasn't been great. I mean, the Clemson game, he blamed on our freshman quarterback when he threw 1 interception and was near perfect. He blamed the fans for the Duke loss, which, not the Wake loss. And he's like, fans didn't show up. I'm like, no, the fans left when we started losing. So, and just his comments about the fact that this is a night game instead of a noon game, saying, well, our fans have been bitching all season, and now they can drink all day before the game like they want. Noon games are fun, but even as a commentator, when I had noon games at Providence, it was like you have less time to prepare. I mean, some people may live far away from the stadium and don't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, would I get up at you and I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to a noon NC State Carolina game, but like that's not our preference. We'd rather it be at like 8 o'clock and Aiden and I hit Moe's or something before the game, or tailgate or something. Have
Yeah.
fun, like
Yeah.
crack a beer or something. But we crack a beer at 11 o'clock and we look like alcoholics. Like Aiden and I can't hit the Moe's before a noon kickoff.
We
Aiden and
can't.
I can't hit the Bojangles before a noon kickoff.
We can't. We can't.
So, to you, Dave Doran, what the fuck if Aiden and I want to hit the Moe's before the game? And with the way the seasons are looking, State UNC may be a fucking noon kickoff on the CW, let alone on the CW.
We got to hit up. If you come down here for the State UNC game, where is it? It's at
It's in Chapel Hill at all
it's
things
at
per year.
Chapel Hill. We hitting up Bob's. We doing a full round. We jumping around everywhere. I don't care if it's a noon kickoff game. I will have you drinking at 8 a.m. in the morning. We're gonna hit the town.
We're gonna hit the town known as Chapel Hill.
I'll show you around. We can do a vlog special. of the UNC NC
And we'll
State
post
game.
it here.
Post it here. But nah. Looking at top 25 matchups that are notable, Texas versus Oklahoma. Texas has been on fire. They have not been down once this season so far, and I don't see them stopping anytime soon. This game, Oklahoma is a strong team, but I don't think they have what it takes to stop Texas. Arch, do we know if Arch Manning's still going to be playing, or is Quinn Ewers back?
I don't know if he's back. I do know that Steve Sarkisian has said when Ewers is back, he will be starting, and I feel like that's a smart decision. You go with your guy.
Has
I mean,
he been? Has the Mannings been paying off Quinn Ewers to act a little
I
act
doubt
injured,
it.
or
Peyton wants Arch. Peyton and Eli want Arch to sit, and Arch wants to sit, which is I mean, I'm sure he's more than happy. I'm sure he's excited to play.
I don't know,
But
900 yards over the past he's only started 2 games technically. He played 3 games, 3 full games basically, but he's only technically started 2, I think.
I think the scary thing is if Arch sits this season, we are in for he's going to tear the college football world apart next season. And if he doesn't even leave for the NFL early, we may be seeing Alabama levels of dominance from Texas for 3 to 4 years.
Texas will truly be back.
Because Arch Manning,
it's a dark time.
Because what Arch Manning said all of last year, yeah, brother's got 4 years left, or 3 years left, or 4 if you include this year. This could be dark times for college football.
But let's not jump ahead of ourselves too much. But outlook of this Texas Oklahoma game, I expect a good. I expect just an offensive showcase. Texas is favored. The matchup predictor has Texas winning 85%, an 85% chance of victory, and I believe that's very accurate. Texas has been on a roll, and Texas has been dominant. I think there's something to be said about a team that has not been down once this season, but there is the question, how will Texas face adversity, especially on the stretch of when they start facing tougher opponents, but this is definitely going to be one of their toughest matchups so far this season. Their only good wins so far, you could make an argument, is Michigan. But Michigan's starting to fall apart. But a win that's starting to age pretty well is UL Monroe. UL Monroe only lost to Texas, and UL Monroe also beat JMU, which has been proven to be a very strong team. So I'm excited to see how this will go, but I'm just not as confident in Oklahoma just because They haven't shown this level of dominance that Texas has. And their only loss comes to Tennessee, and the Tennessee loss might not be aging as well. I still think Tennessee is strong, but Texas is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with this season, and I don't see Oklahoma being able to pull out the victory against them. Other top 25 matchups that need to be brought up: college game days, going to Oxon, going to Oregon. Oregon versus Ohio State, a new Big Ten rivalry in the making. I remember back in the early 2000s, early 2010s, when we would see Ohio State and Oregon play each other. This was like a once in a while occasion that was you would mark your calendars for, because these two teams have history. Well, just strong football history among them, but just don't intercept that much. And now that with them being in the Big Ten, I'm excited to see this primetime game on NBC. I am not necessarily so high on Oregon. Oregon has been up and down throughout the entire season, but has been able to keep the pace, staying at 5-0. But Ohio State has just been, as always, Ohio State has been a force. They've been winning and winning convincingly, and also showing that they have a very strong defense, being able to hold teams like Iowa, Michigan State, and Marshall all under 21 points. I think this is going to be a good game, and I think the real tell of this story is going to be how is Oregon's offense going to be able to respond to Ohio State's defense, because Oregon has had strong offensive production at times, but they've also had some pretty weak offensive production against teams like Idaho. So I think that's going to be the main story that we need to take away. And the key to success for Oregon in this game is definitely going to be if they can match Ohio State's offensive production and excel it by beating their defense.
Yeah, I agree. This is a game where I've seen stuff all over the internet saying that a lot of social media is calling for Ohio State, that they just think Ohio State's can absolutely fucking mollywop Oregon, which is a possibility. I do see that happening, but that is going to all be contingent upon how Oregon handles Ohio State's defense, like you said. Their offense, this is similar to the Syracuse thing. Their offense can keep pace. That Oregon offense could keep pace. But the problem is, how is Oregon going to respond to Ohio State's defense with how good it's been? And how is Oregon's defense going to fare against Ohio State? That is my one concern, is Oregon doesn't have the firepower to keep pace, but will they be able to execute to keep pace? Dylan Gabriel has looked absolutely great. Even when their offense has had bad showings, he has been the one shining star in that. Is he going to be able to have almost that Cam Ward factor and kind of do it all? Because, yeah, Oregon's looked impressive, but they've also looked kind of unimpressive at times. And they haven't really done it against that stellar of competition. I mean, they almost lost to Boise State at home. No shade to them. Boise State is one of my picks for Group of 5 playoff contender. Like, possibly even if they do win the Mountain West, and with how the playoff works, they could be one of the 4 auto bids, because it's not the Power 4 champions, it's the 4 highest ranked conference champions. And if Boise State's 11-1, they're currently 17th at 4-1. If they're 11-1, they're likely inside the top 10. They may be an automatic bid, and that will look Oregon's close win over them better, but I do think Ohio State will handle business. I think it'll be a good game, but I think it'll be one of those things where it's like kind of not a blowout, but like also not close. Like, it'll be kind of an in-between. I think Ohio State may win by, like, say 10 or 13. Get around, we'll say, realm of like 40-24. Like, Oregon keeps pace for like 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters, maybe 3 quarters, and Ohio State just kind of, puts them out of their misery 4th quarter. Like, not an embarrassing showing, but, just kind of like a Ohio State handles business.
And to jump back into the ACC, I think a good game that is going to have major implications on the ACC standings is going to be Pittsburgh versus California. Uh, I'm still high on California. They played a very good game against Miami, just weren't able to come away with the win. And Pittsburgh has been proven to be a very tough and resilient team, able to come away with the win at UNC, and had some tough wins against West Virginia and Cincinnati. This is going to be a very interesting game. I think Cal's going to play with a chip on their shoulder after the past showing against Miami. And I'm excited to see how this one will turn out. I don't think Cal's going to have what it takes to upset Pitt, but I'm definitely interested to see how this one's going to go. Any thoughts on it?
Definitely, I do think this is going to go Pitt's way. I think Cal, like, I feel like that Miami game just kind of that would take the wind out of anyone's sails. Like, you're up 20 plus on like a playoff contender at home, sellout crowd. The first time Cal has had really anything to like celebrate, and the win just gets fucking taken out of your sails. It's demoralizing. I'm not saying Cal, I do think still could possibly win this, but I don't see it happening.
I mean, the
And
reason
that,
why I highlight it is because I do think Cal has a shot at winning, and they have
yeah,
like a
I
puncher's
do too.
shot at the upset. But I think Pitts was just a far tougher team, and they have the offensive capability and the defensive capability to really keep Cal in check.
Yeah, definitely. The only other game I think we'd like to highlight is, Ole Miss, LSU. But Aiden and I were just talking off air. Both teams have been kind of underwhelming this year. I mean, once Ole Miss faced like actual competition, they looked pretty bad. And LSU's been up and down, but we don't think this game's going to be all that it's hyped up to be. And it's not really being that hyped around the internet right now. I mean, obviously, the big marquee one this week is Ohio State. Like, if any time, Ohio State's number one, or is Texas number one?
Texas is number one.
No, Ohio State's two, right?
Ohio 2 and 3.
Yeah, no,
So
two
Ohio
and
State's
three
two.
is always gonna, 2 and 3 is always gonna overshadow like 11 versus 15. I'm
Yeah,
not saying it's gonna be a good game. It's not gonna be a good game, but that's always gonna get overshadowed. I mean, it's not a game I'm particularly excited for. I mean, I've got another game I'm looking at that night, but we'll get into that in a minute.
I do think it's
Um,
interesting, however, that LSU is the underdog in Death Valley, primetime game. I expect a big showing for LSU this game. And Ole Miss has been a little bit not as good as we would hope, but they were able to bounce back against South Carolina. I think this game is going to be interesting, and maybe we're giving it a little bit too much flack, but you got to question the legitimacy of whichever team loses. If Ole Miss loses, it's really not going to look good. And I think Lane Kiffin might be on his way out. This might be like a determining factor if he stays or leaves Ole Miss, because I know there has been talks. I think the interesting idea of him going to Florida is a bigger market, a bigger school. The highs of Florida are definitely outweigh the highs of being at Ole Miss. And LSU, this if they lose at primetime Death Valley game, you just got to question, like, is Brian Kelly the right fit for LSU? So this is going to
I
be a big game in determining. I feel like determining which seats, if coaches are on the hot seats. It is crazy to say because both of these teams are ranked 9 and 13 respectively, but that's just the way the SEC goes, especially if you are trying to play at a high caliber at the SEC.
I absolutely agree. It's just like both teams have a lot to lose in this game and a lot. Don't know if I'd say either team has a lot to gain here. I feel like Ole Miss has a lot more to gain here, especially if they do pull off the win in Death Valley. But like you said, I feel like you really got to question the legitimacy of the team that loses here, especially with Ole Miss would then be 0-2 against marquee competition. I mean, LSU does fare a little bit better against high standard competition. I mean, pulling out the win at South Carolina was not an easy feat after the momentum they had, the momentum South Carolina had. But obviously we will see. In terms of prediction, I do think it's an LSU. I think LSU is going to pull it out. Like, I think it could be a good, entertaining game, but it's kind of a depressing reality for whoever loses the game, especially if you're Ole Miss, because then you're 0-2. I believe you'd then be 0-2 in SEC play, if I'm not incorrect.
No, they just won against South Carolina. They're 1-1 in SEC play. They would be
Oh yeah,
1-2. I think Ole Miss is going to come away with the win on this one.
possibly. I mean, yeah, their offense is pretty. Not saying LSU's offense is good, but Ole Miss is fast and they are aggressive in their offense. Any other games you particularly want to highlight?
Let's highlight Kansas State going at Colorado. Colorado has been, oddly enough, the media hasn't been covering them as much, and I think that has been to their favor. Colorado has been doing good. They're 4-1 right now, and they're going to be hosting at home against a strong 4-1 Kansas State. It's going to be a 10-15 kickoff time on the East Coast. It's going to be a under the lights game. I'm excited to see Shedeur Sanders really try to elevate Colorado this game. They've been having some pretty good production, especially against UCF, where they just absolutely walked them. And they've had a bye week. They've been able to rest up, get ready for this Kansas State game. So I'm really excited to see how they're going to play against them. Kansas State also coming off a bye and playing Oklahoma State. Both these teams are going to be as rested and ready to go as they can. And I'm just excited to see the offensive powers of Colorado go against the offensive powers of Kansas State. And it should be a shootout, and I'm excited for it.
I am too. And like we've talked about on here, Colorado does have a really explosive upside, particularly when their run game is clicking and can supplement the passing game. Colorado's issues been they haven't had a run game to kind of keep defenses honest. Wear down that opposing defensive line. Shadeur's been running for his life, and I know in previous intervals he's thrown the O line under the bus. But when the running game's not working, you really can't beat up the other O line. Your O line can't really get any momentum going for it. And yeah, I feel like if Colorado's going to come away with this, they're going to have to run the ball well. They're going to have to get it done that way. They're going to have to play well, and they're going to have to run the ball well. I mean, obviously, if they throw the ball well, it's going to help them out a lot. But it's going to come down to how well can Colorado establish themselves with the fundamentals. And by fundamentals, like the simple things like getting the running game going, taking timely deep shots, not like, not Colorado where they're throwing a reckless abandon. Like, this isn't the Big 12 of 10 years ago where you can just throw the ball 75 times a game and win a game. No, this is like, you've got to be, the defenses in the Big 12 have come a long way. It's no longer the offense and the kicker just showing up. It's come a long way.
Oh, yeah.
But no, is there anything else you want to say about the game, or would you like to move on to the last little bit of MMA or the results from last weekend?
Yeah. So, first off, let's just as I said, we're not necessarily covering the NFL as much this week, just because not as interesting storylines on our front, since we're mainly a focus on the Carolina Panthers. Mainly, very disappointed to see the turnout on the defense of Carolina just not performing to standards. Especially, but also considering the fact that turnovers were a big issue in this game, and the offensive line definitely fell apart. But going in to UFC 301, there's a couple of cool takeaways that I want to give. First off, the main events. Alex Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree. I was very happy with this fight. I am happy with the fight that Khalil Roundtree put up in this fight. He was going for blows with Alex Pereira, and that is especially something that's very impressive in the light heavyweight division. Nobody has been able to keep up with him, and there were a couple times where he had him absolutely rocked, and I thought the impossible was going to happen. But Alex Pereira was just able to remain cold and just absolutely like Mike Myers, just in his strikes back, able to keep his composure in the octagon and just keep on giving it to Khalil Roundtree. I was a little bit disappointed that Khalil Roundtree didn't try to utilize more grappling in this matchup, because you can't go strike for strike against Alex Pereira. And that's what we were able to learn from this fight, but also from just 2024 in general. Alex Pereira has been going on an absolute tear this year, and going 3-0 in fights this year, and especially in title defenses, is something that is going to be remembered for the entirety of like MMA history. Just this legendary Alex Pereira run. But I was really happy to see Khalil Roundtree put up a fight, and he definitely won some fans over this fight. He just wasn't able to keep his body just gave out in the fourth round, which was very unfortunate. But I'm a big Khalil Roundtree guy. I would definitely be paying attention to what he does in these next couple of fights, and I think he has made the case for a future title shot once Alex Pereira probably decides to jump up to the heavyweight title, the heavyweight division, because Khalil Roundtree just has an absolute fighter's mentality, and I am a big fan of his fight style, and I definitely think he will be the champion of the light heavyweight division someday. But if he decides to jump down to middleweight, I definitely think he could make a good run in the middleweight division. Another fight that I really wanted to talk about was the Juliana Pena fight against Rocky. Juliana Pena was able to just absolutely dominate this fight. I enjoyed a great deal of the fighting that she took on display. Was able to really control the octagon, and had a pretty solid showing. I think she is definitely going to be making a pretty good run as a champion. And Raquel Pennington, I think, is still a very solid fighter, but definitely this is a devastating loss to her, and especially considering the fact that she has not been very well getting a lot of fan attention. I just think this isn't the best result for her legacy as a fighter, but I definitely wouldn't be putting her out of any future title shots, because I definitely think a potential rematch is in order. Juliana Pena won by split decision, which I thought was a little bit controversial. I think she took all like was should have been under a unanimous decision, but 48-47 across the cards. It was a very close fight. Um, I just think it was a good fight that a lot of people aren't talking about, which I think is a little bit unfortunate. Unfortunate. Um, One more fight that I definitely want to bring up is the Mario Batista fight over Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo put up a better fight than I gave him credit for. I thought he had no right to be in the octagon, especially at his age. But he put up one hell of a fight, and some would argue that he won two of those rounds and made the uh, um, case for winning. But Mario Batista, he just was able to edge out the win, and I'm just interested to see where Mario goes in the future. Usually, if a younger fighter is fighting an older fighter, that's just mainly because they want to promote the younger fighter. But with this unconvincing win, I'm just so wondering where he goes from here. And unfortunately, my prediction of Kevin Holland winning uh, uh, was not the case because there was an injury stoppage against Roman Diaz, and Kevin Holland was just out in the first round, which I thought was very unfortunate, just because I really like seeing Kevin Holland's fight style, and I was very disappointed to see that he wasn't able to complete the entirety of the fight. But that's just how it goes. Overall, UFC 307 was a little bit of a weaker card than most other cards of this year. I definitely think the main takeaway of Alex Pereira being one of the most dominant MMA fighters that the sport has seen in recent memory is still holding true. And I'm just interested to see where he goes from here because he has just completely cleared out the light heavyweight division, and there's not much for him to do except go up to heavyweight, which opens up a new bag of worms because there is just the heavyweight division right now in UFC is not looking good. There's so many fights that have just been held up and not have not been moving forward just because John Jones, the current heavyweight champion, has not fought in the past year and a half. Probably it's almost coming up to he has not fought in 2 years, and he's just holding out for a legendary fight against Stipe Miocic, which is a little bit disappointing because the current interim champion of the heavyweight, Tom Aspinall, has been looking to get um the official heavyweight title, but it's just been held up by John Jones, who has been almost inactive for 2 years. This has really held up the division, and with Alex Pereira having nothing to do in the light heavyweight division, it's just a complete and utter mess in the heavyweight division. And I don't know how Dana White's going to remedy this, and I would really hate to see John Jones retire after his next fight to after Stipe Miocic because that would just mean his inactivity for almost 2 years was almost for nothing. It was just for a legacy fight. So more questions than answers have been rising with this installment of UFC 307.
Definitely. I wanted to watch more of the fights than I got to. I kind of fell asleep on the couch watching them, so I wish I was able to make it through. It sounds like I know you said it wasn't as impressive as you would have hoped, but I'm still a little disappointed I missed it because it did sound like there was a lot of good stuff going on, and I'm trying to learn MMA, so I can contribute to the conversation sometimes.
Oh, that's okay. Well, we're gonna get Gareth a MMA tutorial. This podcast is just going to be a lesson for getting you into MMA, and I'm excited for it. But with that being said, we're going to be switching the topic now to soccer, which is something that I don't have that much expertise in. So I would love for you to school me a little bit and to take me to school and tell me what's up in the world of soccer.
All right, so this next game coming up Saturday for the U.S. men's national team is a big one. After 2 months of contract negotiations and rumors on Twitter, the U.S. has finally nailed down and got Mauricio Pochettino as its new head coach. I'm going to do a full breakdown episode on him later, but short answer, great resume. Turned Tottenham from an okay team into people know who they are now. Got Tottenham to a Champions League final, almost won the league. was ousted by Leicester, and that Aiden says he doesn't know a lot about soccer, but Aiden knows about that Leicester season.
Oh,
There were
hell
memes
yeah,
about
hell
that.
yeah, hell
Aiden and I
yeah,
still
hell
make
yeah.
memes about that Leicester season. Only team to outdo Tottenham that season, but this is his first true test. I'm excited to see how he performs. He has not been dealt the best hand of cards when it comes to our friendlies, but the U.S. hosts the World Cup in less than 2 years, and because we are the host, we don't get to take part in qualifying, which means we have no meaningful matches until then. No Gold Cup. Actually, wait, we do. We might have a Gold Cup, which for those of you who don't know, the UEFA Euro was last summer. The Euro was like the tournament for all of Europe. We took part in Copa America, which, believe it or not, is not for North America. Copa America is the South American tournament. We just get invited because there's only 8 South American teams. The North American one, the Gold Cup, may or may not be coming up. I'll have to check on it. But we've got 2 games in the next 2 weeks coming up against Panama and Mexico. And this is who we have hurt. Balogun, Reyna, Weah, Cardoso, Richards, Adams, Dest, Carter Vickers, Paredes, Cochin, Wiley, De La Torre, Ledsman, Yao, Cowell, and Booth. Not all those are starters, but Balogun, Reyna, and Weah, that's like half of our attack. But as a Chelsea fan as well, and Mauricio Pochettino being our former coach, I have faith in this man. He turned around a Tottenham team who was shit when he took over. And yeah, I'd like some revenge on Panama after being essentially knocked out of Copa America by them after just like, an absolute perfect storm of a match, Tim Weah punching the Panamanian player for no reason. Just walked up to him in the middle of the field and just socks him right in the fucking face. Gets a straight red card. The game devolved from there. And then, of course, we weren't beating Uruguay. They're one of the best teams in the world right now. We lost 1-0. That was a good game. We just, couldn't lose that game, and we did. But upcoming, game against Panama, this is, where we're really going to start to see his style. I'm curious to see how he's going to play and the tactics he's going to bring. In the past, Pochettino's kind of run like a 4-2-3-1 possession style team with kind of heavy pressing, a lot of overlapping fullbacks kind of to help overload the sides. I'm curious to see what he does because this isn't our strongest lineup. We still are putting forth good lineup. I know he's got a preliminary 25-man squad, which some of them have gotten hurt since that's been released. But in terms of the starting lineup prediction for tomorrow, I think he's going to go with Matt Turner in goal. Matt Turner has the most starts of any current candidate for that job. I mean, he's also brought Zach Steffen back into the mix for that. Ethan Horvath, who's also gotten some starts, but Matt Turner's the only one who's seen some consistency in terms of starts and performances. Backline's looking a little rough as Serginho Dest and Cameron Carter-Vickers are hurt. Serginho Dest is probably our best option at right back, but he's also got a lot of attacking potential going forward. Carter-Vickers, he's a bigger center back. He's not tall, but he's strong. He's able to muscle people off the ball, and he's really stout in defense. And then just kind of the options we're left with a really inexperienced center backs like Chris Richards, who's kind of our up-and-coming center back. He was supposed to be our tall aerial threat. He's hurt. Currently, how I think Poch will line up tomorrow, I think he'll start with, A-Rob on the left side at defense, Anthony Robinson, my bad. Been really good for Fulham this season. One of the best defenders in the Premier League right now. Center back, someone who's been paired with A-Rob before is M-Rob, Miles Robinson. Not related. Plays for FC Cincinnati. One of the few MLS players I'd actually be comfortable with on the defensive line. For those of you who don't know, I'm kind of biased against MLS. They are getting better as a league, but they're not great. But the only MLS defender I'd be okay with back there right now is Miles Robinson. Only other one would be Tim Ream, who's currently fresh off his move from Fulham to Charlotte FC and has made that defense look a lot better. But MLS is not quite as dangerous and fast-paced as the rest of the world, but I don't think he'll get the start tomorrow. Tim Ream's almost 40 years old. I think he's going to take more of kind of that advisor role, kind of like what we saw from Abby Wambach towards the end of her career where she couldn't physically keep up, but her presence in the locker room was still vital. Other center back, I think we're going to go with Mark McKenzie. Really inexperienced, but I like what I've seen from him at Toulouse in France. Right back will be, and Serginho Dest's replacement that we've seen, Joe Scally. Joe Scally plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach in Germany. Has looked really good. Not quite as good as Dest, but has been serviceable. He unlike the rest of the defense, was not the issue in Copa America. He actually looked good. He kept up. He was able to lock down against Brazil. He was able to lock down their really speedy forwards and wingers. I was really impressed. Well, it's not the best Brazil team we've faced or has been in years, but they're still formidable, and we were able to get out with a 1-1 draw. Midfield, business as usual. Weston McKennie, Musa, obviously Tyler Adams out with that horrific back injury. He's coming back soon, though. His return date is estimated to be October 19th. Maybe we'll get a surprise tomorrow and he pops up in the lineup, but that is, in terms of returning to injury, they usually defer to the clubs because that's where the money is made. Bournemouth has said, AFC Bournemouth in England has said that he's not returning till October 19th, but, maybe Pochettino will surprise us tomorrow. Left wing, business as usual, Christian Pulisic, Captain America, currently on a hot streak, scoring a lot of goals for AC Milan. Currently in the Golden Boot race for AC Milan, which they play in the Italian league called the Serie A, and he's one of the top goal scorers. On the right, his partner will be Tim Weah, also plays for an Italian side, Juventus, looked really good. And up top, we're a little thin. Our premier forward, Folarin Balogun, minutes after being named the squad for this international break, gets hurt. Don't know if he'll be back for the game, but up top, we still got some good options in Josh Sargent and Ricardo Pepi. Sargent being the hot one right now. I do think Pochettino will go with Josh Sargent. We definitely will see a lot of substitutes as he is a new coach. I think this first match, not the Mexico match, he's going to treat kind of similar to a Premier League preseason match where they're playing these matches over in the American tour, like the ones that we see in Charlotte and the one we saw at UNC last year where Chelsea played Wrexham at, why am I blanking, Kenan Stadium. I think we're going to see a lot of substitutes as he's trying to figure out kind of like what his MO is going to be, what's his strategy going to be, and just, who are his dogs? Who's his starting lineup going to be? I know he said he's going to show favor to U.S. players who play in Europe, but with our current injury situation, I don't know if that's possible. He's going to have to reach into the bag. He's going to have to trust some really young players. He's going to have to trust some MLS starters, and I'm excited for how it's going to go. I do think we're going to come out with the win. I do think we'll handily take care of Panama. We would have handily taken care of them had we not had, Tim Weah absolutely decide to start a fucking MMA match in the center circle 5 minutes in. I think this is going to be Weah's redemption game against Panama. We're 4 months on from the Panama game. Now, this being said, if he fucking punches someone again, yank his ass. Like, he's done, in my opinion, if he punches someone again. But I think he's learned his lesson, He's a young guy. The dude was in his ear, and the dude, if you do go back and look at the footage, did call him a monkey if you read lips. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with what Tim Weah did, but, he hit him pretty good. And, Tim Weah being a black man, I can understand why he did not take too kindly to that. I probably would have swung on him if someone called me a monkey. So I don't wholeheartedly blame him for that incident, but, you got to know with sports, the ref only sees the retaliation. Like, that's just, I'm not faulting him, but, you got to be smarter there. But, with that being said, I do think tomorrow he's going to play with the lineup a little. He definitely will take the Mexico match. He will have a more organized approach for that because that is a rivalry game, friendly or not. Those games, past few have ended in fights. The one 2 years ago had to end a whole 7.5 minutes early because of how chippy it got on the field. Both teams had 3 red cards each. There were fights breaking out in the stands. The referee called the game early. But he called the game early not only because of the safety, but because Mexico, not a fan of this rule, but if the referee deems certain chants offensive, he can penalize the team of those fans. And because the Mexico fans started chanting the F slur loudly every time the U.S. goalkeeper touched the ball, he decided to end the match early. Let's hope that doesn't happen, and let's hope we actually get a full 90 minutes out of this game. I don't know if we will, but let's hope we get a full 90 minutes out of this game. I do think we will handle business against Mexico. I hate to say this. Mexico does not look great. They're in a rebuilding phase. They thought they were in a rebuilding phase, and their coach was not rebuilding, and they got worse. I think this is the weakest Mexico team we've seen in years. I don't think we're going to lose to Mexico. I may eat my words on that because it is a rivalry game, but Mexico does not look great. They've got a really aging squad. Their aging squad they're not even playing well for their club teams. They do have some really exciting young prospects, but their player who is supposed to carry them be like their salvation, who He helped them put the nail in the coffin of Germany's reign of the World Cup. He sunk Germany in 2018. He sunk a lot of other good teams at 2018 World Cup. Chucky Lozano, nowhere to be found in this Mexico squad. He may be brought up as a last-minute addition in the coming days, but no Chucky Lozano. So I think the U.S. is going to handle business. That'll do it for the soccer section. But I'm interested to see how Pochettino does, what he comes out with. You'll definitely hear about it next week, win or lose. Probably. Definitely if we lose, you'll hear about it. But, I think you got anything else to add just in general? Or
I think that's about it.
I think that'll do it for us. We've been recording for a long time, especially with that break in the middle. So thank you for listening. This will hopefully go out tomorrow, which will be Friday. Thank you for listening. We're going to try and get up on Spotify. You'll probably find this on YouTube. We'll have some clips for you on Instagram as well. But thank you again for listening. We're Tobacco Road and Abroad, and good night.
Good night.